What is up, YouTube? McIntyre here, bringing you yet again another Meta Monday. Today we're going to be talking about Cursed Hollow, and I'm just going to talk on my 3 points as always that I want to touch on every week, and that is going to be strategy of the map, how you should be playing the map, what you should be looking to do, and when you should be looking to do it. The meta of the map, again breaking down pro teams compositions and kind of looking at the strategy of the map and applying it to their comps. Why are they drafting these heroes? What's the point? What's the purpose? And the third is going to be my favorite picks, which are picks that I enjoy playing on this map. Typically, which is funny enough, the meta picks and the pro players are picking the same stuff that I like on this map, because we all believe that on this map these picks are strong and you should be looking to pick them. So just going right into it, the first thing we want to be talking about, as always, is going to be the strategy of the map. One thing about Cursed Hollow that we'll just talk about right at the beginning is it a 3-lane map. It's a big map, which means lanes are going to be important and rotations and fighting is going to be less important. Because the map is so big, rotating a 4-man, as we do on some maps, we do a 1-4 rotation. You don't really get that on this map. So you have a few lane sort of setups that you can go with. The first is going to be a 1-1-3. So we're going to put one person in the top lane, usually our strongest laner, like our Thralls and our Zagaras. We'll have one person in the middle. This is usually just wave clear. Doesn't really have to win the lane. You just want to be safe and clear the lane. This is kind of like your Tassadars, your Falstads. Maybe if you had like a Jaina even, you could stick her here. And then your tri-lane bottom in this setup is going to be some sort of siege engine, a support, and then someone to protect the siege. Okay, so something like a Zagara, Uther, and Murden would be an incredible tri-lane. Something that's going to be difficult for the other team to deal with and is going to siege down. We've seen even a resurgence here of like Hammer on this map. For this reason, you get a strong tri-lane with a Hammer, and the other team is going to have a difficult time shutting that down, okay? That is the first strategy of the map, of the 1-1-3. The second is going to be the 1-1-1 with a 2-man roam, which we've seen on some maps like Towers of Doom. This shows up. And the idea here is we put kind of strong laners in each lane, and then we have a 2-man roam that's going to look to get picks on these sort of strong lanes, right? So if Uther was solo laning and then he had a let's say ETC Jaina roam, okay? The ETC would show up, the Uther would play up to get a stun, ETC would come out of the bushes, slide, the Jaina would show up, we'd get a pick, right? If you draft a comp that looks like that and is looking to fight and get picks, then that is the way you should be playing it. And your 2-man can also go and do the jungle, do the camps. So camping is important on this map. So your 2-man would do that normally. And you have the 1-1-3 and you run that 3-man. You send 2 people from your tri lane to go to the camp to do the camps. So just some important little things here. But the big objective of Cursed Hollow and where you get all your points is going to be the tributes. So the tributes spawn at each of these orange little markers here. The one problem about the tributes is they do somewhat spawn at random. I say that because if, let's say, a tribute spawns... Hold on, let me get my brush. So let's say a tribute spawns here, and a tribute spawns here. Okay? We now know the third tribute is going to spawn here. Right? So we do know that. We know that about this map when it comes to deciding where tributes will spawn. This is on the first 3, and it kind of sticks to this. Tributes won't spawn on the same tribute that they just spawned on. I believe, and I'm not certain on this, that once a curse happens, so once another team is cursed, then it resets back to the same sort of thing. So again, if it's, let's say it's here and here, then it's going to be randomly either here or here, but it is going to be in the middle one. Okay, so what we won't see is like it'll spawn here and then here, the 2 right ones, or the 2 left ones, or the 2 middle ones. Okay, but it's possible that it could spawn at the bottom left, the bottom middle, but then now it has to spawn in the top right, right? So anyways, that's just kind of the basic idea of trib spawns, but at the end of the day, the tributes are pretty random, but they do affect the way the game is played. So for example, on the very first tribute, a lot of teams like to go and get this kind of camp, okay? So each team normally sends somebody to do this camp and somebody to do this camp. So depending on your kind of randomness of the game, you can get a lot of value off of this camp that pushes top if the tribute spawns on here and you stall it, right? So now you have easies pushing this top wall. So you can get tons of value, and this is why you see most pro teams take these camps early on. It's just on the, just on the chance that they get lucky and those easies are going to get value if the tribute is stalled, okay? So just looking at, that's just the very first one. This continues to kind of go on throughout the game. People like to get camps out before tribute spawns because sometimes it just puts the other team in a really bad spot that they kind of have a hard time dealing with that camp, and the camp gets a lot of value because of it. Just really more so important on that first one to remember that you can do that. So I want to talk about kind of the two sort of strategies for teams when it comes to Cursed Hollow, and that's going to be kind of what you're drafting, right? What you want to play with your draft. The first strategy is going to be the stall and soak composition, okay? And you see these in all sorts of different forms. The first form would be something like using a global. Let's say we use a false dad to soak bottom while we have a 4-man up top that kind of keeps the other team from, grabbing the tribute. Let's say we have a Thrall and an Uther, maybe a Li Ming, and then we have a false dad soaking bottom, right? It works, and then he can fly up at any time when we've gotten an XP lead that we like. Works really well with really good pushing heroes, so Sylvanas, Zagara, like if you leave these heroes in the lane alone while the other team sends 5 people to the top and you have 4, but you have Zagara bottom, Zagara can push a whole wall down, maybe get a fort, and of course buildings always lead to experience leads. So if you can get an experience lead, then you can take that and run with an advantage, that sort of advantage, maybe the 7 fight to the 6 or 10 to 9, a very big level advantage. So this is a common strategy you see, or the super kind of siege and stall would be the Abathur or the Vikings, right? So we take one of these 2 picks and we just soak multiple lanes while we have a pretty self-sustainable 4-man to siege at the other team, right? And poke at them while they try to gain access to the trib. And sometimes if you can stall for even a minute, you just gain a level lead because you've had someone soaking 2 to 3 lanes during that minute and a half of time. So those are the 3 strategies for like this kind of stall soak when we draft a sort of composition around that. And then we have the other one, which is going to be the push up and kind of force the fight, right? So we want to engage on, let's say they have the stall comp and they're trying to stall us, and we're going to say, no, you're not going to stall us. We're going to come into you. And these are picks that are going to be heavy engaged, Kerrigans, ETCs. You see Greymane a lot here, Zeratul, kind of collapse onto the other team, not give them the space to just poke at you. And if they do decide they want to step up, then you're going to kill them, okay? So these are the 2 comps that we're going to see a lot on this map. And it's going to, a lot of pro teams are going to do this. One thing that I think I really like in either composition, whether you are stall or push, is to always have some hero that can jungle. And the reason for that is because the boss is so good on this map. A lot of the time, boss is how you win Cursed Hollow. It is the win condition on the map. Although the cursed kind of in the tributes give you keeps, but the keeps and catapults create space for you to get boss. And then the boss is what wins you the game. So I usually always like having at least one hero that can jungle. Like Greymane, Sonya, Illidan, Zagara's even pretty good at jungling. Sylvanas isn't bad either. But just one of these picks, because you don't want to end up with a team that just has 0 damage on kind of camps, and then the other team invades, and you're still trying to kill it, and then they ace you, and you lose the game. So I just want to kind of point that out when we're looking at both of these compositions. So talking about the curse now, we have kind of a priority on curse, just like with Sky Temple when we talk about tributes. If you're on the right side and the other team has a trib here or here, you're gonna have a much harder time getting to that. So giving up tributes sometimes is okay. So if it spawns here and you just have no chance, or here, there's things you can do on the right side to punish that, right? So especially if it spawns here and you're the right team, you can do the boss. The other team's going to rotate to that tribute, right? And you're going to have all the space in the world to, if you call this quickly, get that boss out, right? Or if it spawns here and you want to be super sneaky, you can go and steal the enemy's boss. You can do things off of the tributes. You don't always have to get them unless it's 2 out of 3 and the next is going to curse you, right? A lot of times I think teams put themselves into a terrible position because they don't rotate quickly enough or something along those lines, a bad tribute spawn, and they try to force to stop it, and they don't need to because it's not 2 out of 3. If it's 2 out of 3 and the next is going to curse, then it's a, there is some argument to contesting, but a lot of times it's just, oh, we have to stop it because it's a tribute, and you get yourself in trouble and end up losing 1 or 2 people, and then they get your boss, and then they get their boss, and then tribute spawning, and now they're at 2 out of 3. Before they were at 1 out of 3 and you try to stop it. Now they're 2 out of 3, they have a curse and 2 bosses pushing. You've just completely blown the game out because you've decided that you want to contest to stop them from getting an advantage of 1 tribute when they already have position on trib. So when you go to a tribute, the reason that a lot of pro teams like to rotate early is because you can get position, which is going to allow you to grab the tribute without the other team having a chance to kind of contest, right? So if we're right team and it spawns here, if we allow the team on the left to get into this kind of area, then we no longer have control of this tribute. But if we're the right team and we get out into this area, we have a lot of control of this tribute space, right? The only way for them to stop us is maybe here or around here, right? And if they do that, we can isolate one of those people and try to kill them. But we want to get set up on a tribute before the other team does. You can also, stop them before they even get to the tribute. So if I'm the right team and I have someone grabbing this curse and I send somebody here and I send somebody here, these are the 2 areas that they'll kind of come from. And if you can dismount them, keep them from getting to the tribute, then you beat them on rotation and you just got a free trib. There's no fight, there's no nothing. And a lot of times you want to try to be doing that on this map. That's how getting tributes is going to be, that's a clean tribute, right? Without getting a pick, you just get it because you've set up before the other team. You've rotated before them. So when it's 2 out of 3, guys, when this tribute spawns, please get on your mount and just go. Get to it as quick as possible because you do not want to give the other team the advantage on a 2 out of 3 and just give them a free curse. You never do. So let's talk about curses now. So a curse is going to turn off all your structures, and it's going to turn off all the enemy structures, and it's going to make all their minions 1 health. So the most important part for me about this is that it makes the enemy's minions 1 health. And I see this all the time in games, and people do this so wrong. They let minion waves die to their minions without soaking. So one thing that I love to do when I have a curse, unless I'm trying to end the game or take a keep or something, early curses, like level 10 curses, where you're not going to be able to really get too much out of them, is I love to send 3 people to soak, and you don't have to stand there and soak. You can go. I do it on Zeratul all the time. If I get a curse, I'll run in here where the wave's kind of spawning and coming out, right? My wave's going to be up here, okay? I'll run out here, the wave's coming, cleave the wave, walk away. So now I have like a whole wave of minions up here, smashing this. Completely clean, I cleared the whole wave, I've gotten all the soak, and now I can collapse middle. My team's middle, let's say. Vice versa, I clear mid, I'll rotate top. Something like that. Doesn't matter. Usually it's a 1-1-3 split you do here. You have 3 people push the lane that you want to be pushed. So if you're right side, maybe 3 people push top, make sure we get that fort. So when we get the boss, we can push towards keep. Whatever the case is, soak the lanes, because a lot of times if you don't soak those lanes, the other team will be soaking your minions and you'll be losing that experience. So even if you're a level ahead, I see teams get cursed, get a level ahead, they're a level ahead, they curse the enemy team, they don't soak, the other team soaks out, and the level lead, the 2-level lead that they've gained, it just disappears because they decide to invade their enemy hards or take easies or do this like backdoor come and hit this wall, right? And the other team's soaking this and this, and it's just, it's not good. Don't do that. Only when you're in the late game, let's say like you're level 18, you've just killed 4 of them, like they don't spawn for 30 seconds, like haul it to this wall, knock the side down, go to the keep, go to the core. Like, other than that, keep an experience lead. Always stay ahead in XP, right? That's one thing that you guys hopefully get out of these videos a lot, is that you want to stay ahead in experience always. That's the most important part with Heroes of the Storm. If you get an item lead, right, in League of Legends, you don't want to let that lead go. Same goes for this game. So, and then one thing that I like doing at the end of curses, let's say there's 5, 10, 15 seconds left, even 15, the other team's going to have, split person. There's going to be some big minion waves. They're going to have a hard time, soaking that up. Especially if you split and push their minions down immediately, then they'll have like 20 plus minions that they have to deal with. And what I like to do is then send my team to the boss. Okay, so this gives the other team 2 sort of options. They soak and give the boss, or they contest the boss. And sometimes teams will contest. They'll lose a bar and a half of levels. They'll contest the boss. You come off of it. All the minions are eaten up. Keep an XP lead. They don't contest. You get a boss. You chain bosses. It's just a win-win. It's just a great win-win. Like, no matter what, you just win the situation. So these are all just really basic strategies for Cursed Hollow. Just ideas that everyone should be thinking when they play the game. I think just kind of going over it, because I'm going to hop into the meta now of the map and what people are picking. I think the most important thing for me is getting position on a trib and kind of knowing when you just can't win it. And if you can't win it, then you need to go and do something else. Because a lot of times teams, even when they can't win a trib, they fight for it and they end up losing the tribute. And they give up soak and they lose things everywhere else. Like, if you're going to lose the tribute, just go do something else. If you know that you're not winning this bottom tribute, do your boss. Be proactive. Like, be proactive. Like, think about, what is happening on the map and what you really you're capable of doing. So, all right, so that is going to be the strategy of the Cursed Hollow. The next thing we're going to talk about is the meta. We're going to be looking at 2 pro games with 2 very competitive teams in both of their regions. The first is going to be the Korean region. We're going to be talking about the Tempo Storm versus MVP Black match that just happened very recently. I'm going to talk about both of their compositions and what I like and don't like, and then talk about who I think kind of wins. Again, so when we talk about the map, we have our stall and soak comps, and we have our kind of all-in comps, right? Our fight. And when we look at these, we see Tempo Storm. They're going to be banning out Illidan, which means, okay, they probably want to, they're probably pushing away the "we're going to chase you" composition, because they don't want the Illidan. And they end up picking up Zagara and ETC as second pick in response to MVP Black taking Muradin first pick. One thing that MVP Black did too is ban Tyrael. So Tempo Storm, kind of with Tyrael, Muradin, and ETC being these strong tanks right now, they felt like they were forced onto the ETC pick. I really like that out of MVP Black. But they did get the Zagara. So now that they have Zagara ETC, they're kind of on that. We're going to stall and soak. Okay, so as their composition goes on, we'll see them kind of tighten that up. The next ban that I think is really important here is the Medivh. So Medivh with portals allows the enemy team to get into your team very easily from angles and shadows. And if really quick, if you look at the map, if I'm here as Medivh, I can portal into your team up here. You know, you don't even have to know that I'm there. I'm just doing it. So I really like the Medivh ban, and they're gonna go into the Brightwing Arthas. So the only thing that I really don't like about this draft was actually the Arthas pick here. I think if they had taken Falstad instead for a disengage, I think they would have been even better off. So taking Brightwing for disengage is really good with the Emerald, plus you get Split Soak, which is strong, but if you take Falstad as well, then you have something to protect your Brightwing, as well as you can protect himself and everyone else on your team. And the global, it adds another global. It keeps MVP Black from taking Falstad to counter the ETC too. So I really don't like this Arthas pick. I don't think MVP Black had any sign of taking it. Maybe they could have taken, you know, Greymane, Murd, Arthas, Abathur, but it's very unlikely. So I really don't like this pick, but notice how they then end their draft with the Li Ming, so this is going to give them just stall power. Like I talked about, we have a strong 4-man with ETC, Arthas, Brightwing, Li Ming, and then we have Zag to push, okay? Other things to talk about here is when we talked about, you know, how we set this up, 1-1-3. We have our Li Ming to be a solo laner just to push the lanes out. Arthas, another solo laner. And then we have our Brightwing, Zagara, ETC tri-lane. The ETC protects the Zagara, and the Brightwing kind of keeps Zagara from trouble, but they can push very well. So they fall right into that strategy for Tempo Storm. So next we're going to be looking at MVP Black's composition. They are going to be the first pick here, and as I said before, they did ban the Tyrael, going right into the Murden. I think one thing that this is going to say right off the bat is that MVP Black wants to be that push-up, force a fight comp. They want to be the engager by taking the Murden. And they follow that up quickly with the Abathur Greymane. Abathur Greymane has paired well together forever because Abathur can hat the Greymane. Abathur can clone the Greymane, and a clone Greymane is amazing. And again, this is something that kind of is MVP Black. They love the Abathur. They love the aggressive playstyle. So this is going to be, you know, something that they've kind of always had in their back pocket, especially when it comes to Curse Hollow. Abathur being such a strong pick, controlling rotations, having split push, having split soak, double soaking, so many things that Abathur can do here on this map. And one thing I think I really like about Kioch's Abathur is he takes the global mine at level 4 a lot and puts mines in places that you normally don't see Abathur mining, and these mines can just be really problematic and really annoying to deal with when you're an enemy team trying to rotate to a tribute. So I really like that about Kyoji's Abathur. The next thing is they're going to ban out Hammer, so banning out the other team's ability to push even harder. So because Tempo Storm had the Zagara, they could put the Zag in a solo lane, which is a problem, right, in itself. But imagine a Zagara in a solo lane with a Hammer in a tri lane. I talked about this before with this push poke kind of comp. It would be very problematic for Tempo or for MVP Black. They wouldn't be able to get onto the Hammer. The Hammer could just siege and do whatever she wanted. So I really, really, really like this ban. I think it was crucial for MVP Black in winning this game. And they're going to just have some follow-up picks. I think these are very basic picks. They could have gone Li Ming, but they took the Gust just for a little bit of utility. I like having some sort of disengage with Abathur. That's why we normally see a Zeratul with it. Zeratul, the normal Zeratul can BP and kind of disengage. So I really like that sort of pick up Falstad being able to Gust to disengage a fight, and just Rhaegar being a strong support hero. Overall, looking at both compositions, I believe, in my opinion, that Tempo Storm's comp is stronger here if the Arthas isn't picked. I think that they took the Arthas away thinking that MVP Black would run it, but I think it was a bit too early. Had they have taken Falstad there, they would have had a much better time, or a utility hero. Another utility hero like Zeratul. Any utility hero to disengage the Abathur just makes more sense to me. Plus, Falstad can gank Abathur, so can Zeratul. So It's just really weird that Tempo decided to go that Arthas route. With that said, though, MVP Black, when the Arthas was taken, won the draft. So a really good draft by MVP Black. I like their style. They know their style, and they drafted it really well here. So next, we're going to be looking at an NA draft. This is going to be between Noventa and Murloc Geniuses. We're going to see some things that are very similar here and some things that are very different. The first that I think is similar but kind of rare is the Medivh is first banned by Team Noventa. So as we saw with Tempo Storm, they also banned the Medivh. Both teams, both Murlocs and MVP Black have Medivh players. I know Psom plays Medivh for Murlocs and Rich plays it for MVP Black, and both are really strong Medivh players, so it makes sense. But we're going to see Noventa go into this kind of pokey stall soak composition. They're first picking Ariel and then going Muradin, Lunar. So these three heroes just together without anybody else as a 3-man are very strong, and they can kind of control the map by themselves. They don't really need much else, and it allows a lot of flexibility for their back 2 picks. And their back 2 picks, they actually are going to ban the ETC. So now Murlocs has no stun tank, and they're going to clean up the comp with an Illidan Tassar. So these 2 picks are just blow Murlocs out of the water. You can see that, you know, they go the Arthas last as a kind of, okay, maybe this will stop the Illidan. They just weren't ready for it at all. They don't really have a lot of control for Illidan. And this is going to allow Noventa to not only control the map with camps, because Illidan is so powerful at camping, but also siege really well, because Illidan sieges incredibly well when he can't be dealt with. There's not many heroes on Murloc's team that really deals with the Illidan, right? So it kind of allows Illidan to, let's say we have that strong 3-man, like I said before, they can rotate, fight somebody, and then Illidan and Task can go and do a camp by themselves. So a really powerful composition, a great Curse Hollow draft. I really like this draft out of Noventa. So when we look at Murlocs, just off the beginning, and this is kind of Murloc's strategy for a lot of their drafts, is they are mostly an all-in fight team. They like to fight, just like MVP Black. They're normally looking to just get one pick with either a Li Ming or a Grey Mane, and then they're going to protect those 2 heroes until that pick is made. We do see Tyrael Arthas. I really like that synergy as a duo, right? A lot of frontline. They both can kind of protect each other and create space, right? Arthas slows, but Tyrael speeds up, and then, you know, because Tyrael's speeding up Arthas, he's slowing people. They move really well together. So I really like those 2 picks. I really do like Murloc's draft. I just believe that when they banned Brightwing, they just weren't looking at the Illidan pick for Noventa, and I believe at that point in the draft they lost the draft. They just overshot the Illidan pick altogether. I would have loved to see an Illidan ban there second instead of Brightwing. And then I think their draft would have been so much better. They could have opted to go into an Abathur. Even with their draft now, they still could have gone Abathur instead of Arthas. But the Tyrael would have been a little nasty, but then it would have at least created some pressure on the map. As is, I do believe that Murlocs lost this draft, but I can see what they're trying to do here. A heavy engage with the Arthas Tyrael, and then try to find some reset pick with the Li Ming and Grey Mane. So looking at the drafts again, I'm obviously going to prefer Noventa's draft here. I like how they kind of brought the draft around at the very end. They had a strong 3-man. They have lots of poke. They have good camp pressure. They have pretty good siege. And one thing that I think, looking at both and just thinking about Cursed Hollow, if Murlocs gets a pick, they don't get much out of it other than, let's say, a boss. But if Noventa gets a kill or 2, they can siege very well with their team and continue to push that advantage and maybe find more picks because of the Illidan. So I really like, again, Noventa's draft here when looking at a kind of a hybrid push and all-in kind of team composition. So really good draft. Before we move on to the third, my favorite picks, I want to talk about just a little bit, just 2 points, major points that I wanted to bring up about the North America and Korean differences. I think in Korea, one thing that I don't see here is Korea has a global focus on this map in particular and focus on controlling the map of Curse Hollow. As you can see with these compositions, no false stat is taken, no Brightwing is taken, no Abathur is taken. These are all global, strong, control the map heroes, and none of them are taken here. Whereas when we look at these drafts for NA, it's a lot of team fight based compositions where we're going to have a priority on fighting over Trib and gaining our advantages from that. So just wanted to point that out before I go into my favorite picks. So going into my favorite picks, we're going to be talking about the very first one, which we did see come up in one of these drafts, and that is going to be Abathur. So I just love Abathur on this map. I love being annoying. I love slowing the enemy's rotations down. I love cloning and suiciding my clone into the other team, just causing a ruckus for the other team. Abathur does that so well. You can soak multiple lanes. You can keep your team alive even when they're dying. I always feel like when I play Abathur in Hero League, especially, my team might get picked, but because I'm soaking 2 lanes, I keep us up in experience most of the time. One thing to remember with Abathur is that you always have to have a good clone target. You don't have a good clone target, then you're gonna have a bad time. It's also kind of off that idea is sometimes you can clone people that aren't your good target. If your Uther's dying by himself, clone your Uther, heal him, and then suicide. Create space. You have a low cooldown ultimate. Use it. Don't always think you have to, clone the gray main, right? If your Murden's dying, but your team might win if they start a tank, clone your Murden. Create space for your gray main, Utilize the ability to clone everyone on your team, but remember that having a good target to go into most fights with is usually really strong on Abathur. One other thing that you really want with him is a strong tank. If your tank is weak and dies quickly, then Abathur doesn't get as much value, so remember that when drafting him. The other is that I personally really like some form of disengage. Zeratul, Falstad, Brightwing, Emerald Wind, something that gets the other team off of your team if everything goes wrong. Sometimes you clone and it just doesn't work out. And sometimes you don't have clone up and your team's dying and they need to get out. So I really like that, and I really like Abathur on this map for those reasons. The next pick is going to be Illidan. So Illidan was picked up by Noventa, and it was banned by the Koreans. So obviously it's a good pick on this map, and I believe that a lot of people actually sleep on it on this map. If there was an Illidan map, I think that this would be it because he does everything really well on this map. Camps mean a lot on this map, and he can do them quickly. The boss, Illidan, can basically solo. He only needs like one person helping him most of the time, if that. The other thing is that this is a big map, so let's say Illidan gets top lane and there's a tribute fight here, and you've already pushed out this fort, right? Illidan has all this space to chase, and there's one thing about Illidan is if he has room to chase, then you better watch out because that's where he excels. So this map, I think, is Illidan's map, and I think a lot of people just don't really respect him. One thing to remember though, if you take Illidan, make sure the other team doesn't have a lot of counters to you. You normally don't want to just open up with an Illidan on this map. As you saw, Noventa last picked it. If you open up with Illidan, then make sure that you get picks to protect him and you ban picks that kill him. I don't really want to go too much into a lot of that, as I don't want to give out too many secrets, but I will give you that kind of idea when picking Illidan. So the last pick is going to be Tyrael. Again, this is another power Tyrael map. There's so many choke points that Tyrael can sword and body block with his holy ground. So many sanctification points. He can sank for curses. He can sank on bosses. He can holy ground steal bosses. He finds the enemy team. This is just one of Tyrael's best maps. Being able to disengage a team fight with his holy ground is really powerful. You know, much like Towers of Doom, where Tyrael was also one of my favorite picks, this is a tribute stall map, so stalling a tribute is really good, and he can do that well without being too much, you know, getting himself too much out there. Unlike, let's say, an ETC pick, who really has to overextend to stop a tribute. So I really like Tyrael on this map. And just an honorable mention with the Tyrael, which I almost put, I don't have a picture of her, is going to be Brightwing. She's just like Tyrael on Towers of Doom. She was also one of my favorite Towers of Doom picks. Being able to global soak on this map is always great. And just like on Towers, this is going to be a sustained tribute channel fight. So having Brightwing just stand around your team and heal everyone up is awesome. Emerald winning keep people away when they engage is really good. And you can also Emerald to steal bosses. So I just really like Brightwing on this map. Those are my 3 picks. As I said before, Abathur, Illidan, and Tyrael, all really strong picks on this map. Just make sure that when you pick them, you have something behind them. I would say Tyrael's the only pick that's flexible basically everywhere. He's just really good all the time on this map, as it's more of a pokey map. It's not so much a let's stand around and get poked at. Because we have to, it's a how can we finesse this team fight to work in our team's advantage? And Tyrael usually finds a way to do that. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube and throw a like on this video. You can also check out my past Meta Mondays for all the different maps. I have these kind of laid out for all the maps. I'm still working on a few. I still got a few more to go. You can also check me out on Twitch and Twitter, which will both be located below, and check out my tier list, which will also be located below. But again, guys, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully you've enjoyed, and I will see you all next Monday. Cheers.